So right now, I would like to actually introduce our first speaker of the day, Jacob, who is a decentralized applications engineer from the Decentrology team. And for today, he will bring you through an introduction of a DappStarter, which is to dive deeply into the topic of how to build an NFT project for Flow using IPFS. So this 30-minute session will really be covering what DappStarter is, the basics of creating NFTs, and also leveraging IPFS with Flow technology. So Jacob, please take the stage.
All right. Hi everybody. It's me, Jacob here, and so excited to see all of you. For those of you that are a bit sleepy, hopefully we can hype you up and get you back in the space here. So I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully all of you can see this DappStarter page. So what I'm going to kind of walk through today is what actually is DappStarter. And why it might be helpful in developing your decentralized applications. And hopefully you walk away feeling really excited and also walk away thinking that I am the best speaker here. Just kidding. But yeah, let's get started. So what actually is DappStarter? Well, if you go to DappStarter.decentrology.com, you can see that it brings us this page. And what we can do is we can kind of walk through step by step and start building a decentralized application. And we don't even have to code anything. So we can start with step one here. And you'll see that it gives us a bunch of blockchains that we want to choose from. And so in this case, we're going to choose Flow. So it's already selected for us. And then this languages section already has Cadence pre-selected for us because that is the smart contract language for the Flow blockchain. And then we can scroll down and we're going to, select our framework. You could choose React if you want to, but I'm going to stick with vanilla JS. And then we can go to our foundations. And so what foundations are is they're almost like pre-built ideas around what a Flow project could be. And so in this example, we have a bunch of foundations here. If we wanted to, we could click on a ballot voting, which is a simple dApp with smart contracts that are already configured to help you deal with ballots and voting on the blockchain. And you can see that it even has IPFS integration here. And so we could choose this one if we want to. And there's other ones, including a pack NFT. And this is, an example decentralized application that is sort of similar to like NBA Top Shot, if you've heard of that. So what these foundations do is they come with smart contracts, and they also, come with like a client and testing already for you. So we're really selecting a whole, package of cool stuff when we select our foundation. And so what we're going to do for this example is we're just going to go with a simple NFT. It's very simple, and you can see that it is a simple NFT with IPFS integration. So we're just going to go with that one and hope for the best. And so then what you do in your, the last step is you do your Dapp name. So you don't have to pay attention to this at all. There's nothing really going on here. I'm just like randomly typing stuff. So once you randomly type your Dapp name and have no idea what you typed, you just, you click create Dapp. And what it's going to do is it's going to auto-generate, it's going to auto-generate a full stack decentralized application for you. And remember, you don't have to do any of the actual coding here. It does this for you. And so it'll give you an actual GitHub link that you can click on, and it'll take you to a GitHub repository with all the code in here. So this is the full stack application for you. And it gives you a bunch of prerequisites you'll need. You'll need Node.js, Yarn, the Flow CLI, of course, because we'll be running stuff on the emulator. And there's some simple instructions here, but I do want to point out that currently we are actually we're figuring out a way to do this in a cloud container, and we actually have. And so that's in beta testing right now, where we'll have all of this already pre-configured inside of a cloud container, so that you actually won't have to have any dependencies at all. And you could just simply run it in the cloud and it would work just fine. So if you're interested in that, we're still kind of testing through that, but that's going to be coming soon, and we're really excited about that. So what we can do is actually go back to our DappStarter page. You could download a zip if you wanted to, but I'm just going to copy this link, and I'm going to go to my terminal and just git clone this. I'm going to git clone this repository. And so if we actually, I'm just going to cd into this, and you'll notice it generates a random name. But this is just so that you can recognize your DappStarter project as a repo here. So we're going to go back to our terminal. I cd'd into my repository. I'm just going to clear this so that it's more easily viewable. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kick off the yarn process here. So what this is going to do is start installing all the dependencies, and we use Lerna to do that. And this might take a bit. So usually when I do these sorts of demos, I pull up a Flappy Bird and I start trying to see what my high score can be. But instead of doing that, I know that would be really exciting, but I'm going to open this up in VS Code while we're yarn installing. And so that way we can start to actually view our project here. I'm going to just pull this over to the right. And I'm going to take my browser and pull this over to the left so that we can view both at the same time here. All right. And if anyone wants me to increase the font size, I'd be happy to do that as well. So it's still yarn installing. And so while it's doing this, I'm just going to kind of walk through what DappStarter actually is and what this code means. So it might be a bit overwhelming at first, but hopefully once I walk through this code from a sort of high level, you can kind of get an understanding for what we're actually doing here. So if you open up packages, there's the three main ideas here that come with this application. The first one is a client. So when you download your DappStarter project, it actually gives you a client for you that you can interact with your smart contracts, your transactions, your scripts, and all this sort of stuff. And so once we yarn install, I will show you what this client actually looks like. The second one, and arguably the most important, is something called a DappLib. And so what a DappLib is it aims to be a sort of, besides the contracts folder and the transactions and scripts that you write, it aims to produce something called a dapplib.js. And this is a blockchain agnostic file that you could think of using in your mobile apps. You could use in your separate dapps. It's not specific to DappStarter. In fact, we've architected it in such a way that you could use it with any application you want. And all of the blockchain specific code is actually inside of the file for that blockchain.js. So all of this code is really blockchain agnostic, except for this flow.js file. And so if you were to go on our DappStarter page and download an Ethereum project, for example, you would still see a very similar dapplib and a blockchain.js, but you would just have a Ethereum specific file instead. And so hopefully you could see that if you wanted to use this outside of DappStarter, let's say you had a client that lived somewhere else and you just wanted to pull in the dapplib.js file, you could do that as well. And I'll show you exactly what this dapplib.js file is. But it looks like we've actually installed our yarn dependencies. So what I'm going to do is clear this, and I want to show you exactly what DappStarter even is, because I don't want to, for those of you that are still feeling a little bit sleepy, I don't want you to feel bored. And so I'm going to show you exactly what we're working towards. And to do that, I'm going to type in yarn start. And what this is doing, you'll see there's a bunch of stuff that's going to pop up on the screen here, and it looks like there's a lot going on. But what's actually happening, I'm going to scroll up a bit, is it's auto-generating accounts on the blockchain for us. So a lot of times, when you're developing your dApps, there's a lot that goes into it, right? You have to have the CLI, you have to, generate accounts, you have to figure out a wallet, you have to configure your transactions and scripts to that wallet. But we actually done all that for you. And so when you yarn start, we kick off the client process, and it starts auto-generating accounts for us. And so you can see that in the terminal here, it's even showing us the events that were launched from the blockchain, that were emitted from the blockchain. And this is all due to account creation. And so all these events, and you can see get account latest and all this stuff is really generating accounts for us. And if we scroll down, it generates 5 of them. And then what it does immediately after that is it starts deploying all the contracts that are in our project. And we can see that happening here. So for example, it deployed our non-fungible token contract. It deployed our simple NFT contract. And I will actually show you where that lives inside of our Decentology project in a sec, after I show you all the stuff on the client. So you can see that once it deploys the contracts, it actually launches the project, and boom, that's what we're seeing on the left here. So when you launch your project, it'll actually show you dappiness in big letters, and hopefully you're feeling some dappiness right now. But the coolest part that I always think is in the DappStarter project is something called a UI harness. And so what a UI harness is it's essentially it's a cool thing that you can use to interact with your transactions and scripts individually on a localized emulator. And it allows you to test your transactions and scripts and your contracts very easily. And so because we have generated a simple NFT project, you'll see that, and actually I might increase the font size, and I hope that helps. So this makes a little UI harness for us called Simple NFT. And again, this is because we selected the Simple NFT. But if we had selected multiple, or if if you wanted to pull in a separate foundation, it would just create a separate card here. And so we can click on View, and it pulls up a whole UI harness for us. And so what this is you can see there's a bunch of what we call action cards. These little these rectangles here with these cool, like we call them widgets inside of here, and these submit buttons. These are called action cards. And what these are individual transactions and scripts that you can run to interact with your contracts. And the other goal here was that these action cards actually work off the previous transactions and scripts that you've run. So for example, if I were to set up an account by giving them an NFT collection, the next action card would keep that state, and it would mint the NFT into that collection. And so every time you want sort of a new environment, all you would do is just re-yarn start your project, and it would give you a fresh emulator, which is super awesome. And so what we can actually do is just run through a simple example of exactly what this means. And so let's do that now. So on Flow, for those of you that have been developing on Flow, you know that there's definitely a process when it comes to minting an NFT and all that. You have to set up an account. So let's actually do that. Let's set up the admin account for receiving NFTs, and so we can submit this transaction. And what it does is you'll see that if the transaction succeeds, it comes up with a transaction hash. So this is actually the transaction hash that was just generated. And this is because the transaction went through. And if we go to our terminal, you'll see there's a lot of cool stuff we can see here. And I'm just taking a look in the chat. Oh, yeah, so feeling of happiness. Let's go. That's awesome. And so if we go to our terminal, you'll see that a bunch of stuff was just put here, right? And so it's actually logging all the stuff it's seeing from the emulator right to here. So you'll see, boom, transaction executed with a gold star. And so if you see that gold star, you put your hand in the air, and it's awesome. So that means that it succeeded. And so, yeah, so this is the transaction that was just executed, and we provisioned our account, or we basically, what that really means is just gave our account an NFT collection. And so let's also do that for the Alice account. And also, this right here is something we called a account widget. And so this has a list of all of the accounts that were auto-generated for you. So it has an admin, Alice, Burball, there's a bunch of accounts that we can use, and they all have their own address. So this makes testing really easy, because if we wanted to, I don't know, maybe transfer an NFT from Alice to Burball, we easily could, right? Just by setting up both accounts and doing that. All right. So what we can do next is we can actually mint an NFT. And for all of you Filecoin IPFS folks out there, this is where stuff might get exciting. So we're going to actually mint an NFT, but the trick is that the NFT metadata is actually going to live on IPFS. So, when you store things on the blockchain, it can get really expensive. And, we don't want to store entire images on the blockchain, because that would just cost way too much. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to actually upload that image to IPFS and store that IPFS hash on the blockchain inside the NFT itself. And that way, if we wanted to, that the person who owns that NFT could read that metadata, and they could, go to the IPFS URL and see their metadata on the decentralized storage. And that's exactly what we're going to do right now. So let's actually mint an NFT to the Alice account because we just set Alice up and gave her an NFT collection. We can click on browse files here and it's going to bring up a bunch of files. And so I'm just going to select, I'm just going to select a random file that I want to upload to IPFS. I'm actually going to upload the file that you see in this background here. And so here we go. So this is the Mercury Hackathon background and it puts it right here for us. And so we can keep that there and then just click submit. And so when we click submit, it's actually going to, it's going to run the transaction for us. It's going to give us a transaction hash. And if we go to the the log here, you'll see there's an event that was emitted, simple NFT contract.deposit. So we deposited an NFT to a collection. And we also see that, wonderful gold star that boom, everything is good to go. So Ken says, can Jacob explain some of the scripts in package.json? Yes, so we can go into that at the end if we have some time. So, all right. So the next thing we want to do is, we just minted the NFT, right? But how do we actually view, what NFTs are in the account? So if we were to view the NFTs in the admin account, you would see that there's nothing, right? There's no result because we haven't minted any NFTs into that account. But we have minted an NFT into the Alice account. So let's actually click on Alice and view this again, and you'll see, boom, we get 0. And so what this is this is the NFT's ID. And the way that we have done it is that, NFTs increment their ID starting from 0. And so it'll go from 0 all the way up to, infinity if you love NFTs and want to be rich on NFTs. But this is the ID that Alice has. And so let's actually now view the metadata for this NFT, right? We want to see that image that we just minted with that NFT. So let's click on Alice again because it lives in Alice's account, and let's type in the ID 0. And it'll actually return the metadata associated with this NFT. So it has an ID of 0, and then there's also a IPFS hash here. And so what we can do is we can actually view this on IPFS. So if we wanted to, we could go to this link and then copy and paste to the IPFS hash. So ipfs.infura.io/IPFS, copy and paste our hash, and look, boom. So we actually see our Mercury Hackathon Zoom background image on IPFS. And it wasn't, it didn't need to be stored on chain because it would have been super expensive. Instead, we uploaded it to a decentralized storage, and now it's living here. And so what we can do is we can actually, let's click on this image, and boom, there's the background that's right behind me, and so everything is working as intended. So super cool stuff. All right, and so I'm looking at the chat. Nice. All right, awesome. Cool. So then, the last thing we're going to kind of go over here, and again, you could add infinite amount of things to your UI harness here, but these are just the things that I've set up. And so let's actually transfer the NFT from Alice to the admin with the ID 0. We can submit this transaction. And now if we were to go up, Alice would have no NFTs, but the admin would have that NFT with ID 0. So bam, there's the UI harness. These are all the action cards we've done. But the idea is that when you download or you clone a DappStarter project, the idea is that you could build off of this Dapp. So while we give you a simple UI harness for you already, the goal is that you would put in your own smart contracts and you would put in your own transaction scripts and you would make your own action cards to fit it however you want. And so let's actually take a look at exactly how that's done inside the project. So inside of your dapplib package is a folder with all the contracts. And so if we click on this contracts folder, and then let's go into Flow, for example, you'll see that, these are the base Flow projects that you would usually use. And so for any foundation that you were to clone, you would see that, you have these 3 contracts always, because these are always super important. And so we thought, why not just throw these in there to kind of help you in your development. So for example, non-fungible token, we can actually, I'll expand this a little bit. And so for non-fungible token, we can see that there's a bunch of, code here for us. And this is the NFT standard. So if you wanted to make an NFT, bam, here's the standard that you can use. And so can you zoom in a little bit? How is this? Is this good, or should I zoom in again? How's that? Is that better? Cool. Okay. I can see it clearly. Fine. Okay. Awesome. All right, thanks for the feedback, guys. So if you need me to do anything, just let me know in the chat. So yeah, and then what we can do is we can actually go into the project. And so the project folder is the specific contracts that are unique to this project that we did, right? So we got simple NFT, and boom, it gives us a simple NFT contract for us. And so I'm not going to walk through all parts of this contract because we are definitely limited on time. But what I do want to point out is that, look, inside this NFT resource that we've defined, it fits the NFT standard. But the cool thing is that, look, we've included an Ipfs hash. So I hope that this somewhat proves that, when we upload that Mercury image, right, and I submitted that to the decentralized storage Ipfs, it actually is storing that hash within the Ipfs variable here. And so when we were viewing that, on Ipfs, it was actually returning the hash that's stored in the NFT. So whoever stored this NFT would have that hash, and they could view it, however they wanted to. And so I think that's super cool. And, there's a bunch of other stuff in here, like how do we define a collection, where are these NFTs stored? But again, just because we're limited on time, we're not going to walk through all parts of that. All right. So the next folder I want to go over is the interactions folder. And this stores all of the cadence code for our transactions and scripts. So let's just open our transactions, for example, and let's go into Mint NFT. Bam. So this is the transaction code for actually minting an NFT. And you can see all these, pretty cool comments I've put in here. I've tried to document this code a little bit to help those of you out in your journey. And so that's all here. Now, I do want to point out also that, for those of you that like working on the Flow playground and like having that, compile time error, well, what we can actually do is I can show you that exists in this project as well. So let's say I was to, let's say I was to modify something here. You'll see it gives me an error, and it says cannot find type in its scope, uint6. So it actually gives us compile errors as well. And so let's also maybe mint or pull up a transaction. And let's say that instead of calling it NFT minter, I called it Morgan, right? And so it's going to actually give us compile time errors that say cannot find type in this scope, simple nft.morgan. So it's giving us those errors, for us automatically. And so, if you like that Flow playground experience, you'll get a similar thing here as well. All right. So that's, where you would put your scripts and transactions. And again, these are just .cdc files, so cadence code, and that's all cool. So I've been talking a lot about, the DappLib. And so let's actually, take a brief look at this. And remember, I said that the DappLib is, it's unopinionated. There's it's not configured for a specific blockchain. So if you were to select any other blockchain, it would look very similar. And we've done this purposefully so that you can bring this sort of dapplib.js file anywhere you go. And so this file contains a bunch of JavaScript functions, for example, mint NFT, and these are the functions that your client is calling. And so, truthfully, like if you had a separate client that you wanted to use instead of the UI harness that I just showed you, all it would require would be importing in this dapplib.js file, and it would do all of the rest for you. And so this mint NFT function, you can see that it's setting the IPFS config, and it's IPFS uploading. So it's uploading all of our stuff to IPFS, and then what it's doing is running something called blockchain.post, and this is a transaction. So it's running the mint NFT transaction, and it's passing in all of our parameters that we have set on the UI harness for us. So super cool stuff. Morgan says, thanks for associating me with errors. Of course, Morgan. All right. And so I got a question, where can we find all this code? So you can find all this code on the DappStarter.decentrology.com website. And then you can select your foundation there, but I will come back to that in a bit since we only have 10 or so minutes. All right. So this is all the functions. And then I do want to leave some time for questions. So I'm going to run through one more quick thing with you. And that is going to be a testing, right? So in any, DApp that you have, you won't really want to have unit testing. And this is, a recurring theme across any blockchain you're using or whatever it may be. And so we actually have configured a unit testing into the project for you as well. And so you don't have to do any of that. So, we've seen a lot of people using DappStarter to have unit testing for like deploying contracts to mainnet, because the Flow team requires, unit tests in order to deploy your contracts to mainnet. And so a lot of people have used DappStarter for that. And I will show you exactly what that is as well. So instead of typing yarn start to launch our project, if you instead type yarn test, what it'll do is generate those accounts for you automatically. It'll deploy your contracts, and then it'll run all the unit tests that we have defined previously. So under simple NFT, boom, it's running a user has no NFTs unit test. It's running a mint NFTs in the user account unit test, and boom, it says 6 passing with flying check marks. We're good to go. Bam, all our unit tests are working, and that's cool as well. And so where that's actually happening is inside the dapplib in the test folder and simple NFT tests. You could walk through all these tests. These are just configured with just JavaScript. And you can also see that the what I was saying about that dapplib function, it can really be called from anywhere, right? It's being called from our client, but it's also, look, we're using that same dapplib function that we were using for our client inside our test folder as well. So all it's doing is calling those dapplib functions that the client would be calling and passing in hard-coded parameters for a unit test. So if we wanted to change this and have it fail, we could update this to 0 or whatever it may be, and it would fail those tests. And so yeah, so it's using our dapplib function that we've defined pretty much everywhere. And so I'm checking the chat again. All right, so everyone's this is good. This is good. Yes, and unit testing can be very painful. All right, so I'm gonna kind of take a pause there since we only have 8 or so minutes left. I know I just sped through that and there's a ton going on. But I just want to know if anyone has any questions about, this decentrology project. So thank you for answering those questions. Okay, so those questions are already answered. Perfect. All right, so yeah, so anyone has any questions? So it seems like you did a killer job making minting NFTs easy. Thank you, Jim. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, really the whole point of this was that, like anytime you want to get started with a blockchain, there's so many things going on. You go to the docs, there's just lists and lists and lists of stuff to download, and it can be really confusing. So the whole goal here was to try and get you started in your DApp development, without the pain of having to figure out how accounts are made, figure out how to write your transaction code. We've done that for you, and so you can really, what we always say is that we hope to bring 80% of the DApp to you, and then you would add 20% of the value, but hopefully even way more than that. And so you can really achieve your dreams on DappStarter. All right, nice work having the test too. Thanks, Jim. It's really sweet. Is there any resource to develop front end using UI harness? Is there any resource to develop? Well, I can actually show you the. So I didn't show you the UI harness, but what that is actually inside the client here. And if you click on source, and then go to harness here, we can click on the simple NFT harness. And so we use a lit element for our client here. This is using vanilla.js. And there's a bunch of, like I was saying before, there's a bunch of action cards here. And so hopefully you can kind of see how these action cards work just by these examples. Although if you're actually looking for direct documentation on how to develop on the UI harness, check out the fast forward repos that we did, the fast forward bootcamp. There's a bunch of resources there, and that's actually listed on the Mercury resources page. So remember to check out the Mercury resources page, and there's a bunch of stuff on how to do that there. Thank you, Morgan, for linking that. Awesome. And so if you actually were to go to week 2, I believe, it's one of the later days in the week, and this would exactly show you how to do this on DappStarter. So I can throw HTML, CSS, JS, and UI harness. Yep, you can. So if this is just a client that we've done for you. But if you have any client, all you have to do is import dapplib right here. So if you have any client, all you do is import the dapplib, and that's it. And it would work. And so there might be some configuration there, but we'd be happy to work through that with you. And so yes, you can see all these action cards here. You just provide a title, a description, method post because it's a transaction. If it was a script, it would be get your fields. And so this is an account widget that's selecting an account. Similarly, this upload widget. So what we've done is we've abstracted all of these sort of widgets into components here. So if you were to open up the components folder, you would see all of these widgets here for you. So that widget I was showing that selects accounts, that's been abstracted into something called an account widget. That little IPFS box that allowed us to upload files to IPFS, that's been abstracted into an upload widget. So you could also use these components in any project that you have, and it would be configured and ready to go for you. And so, yeah, so is there a DappStarter in TypeScript 2? I don't know if, I don't believe so. Right now, we just have vanilla JS and React, but there's definitely more frameworks to come. We're trying to, do this for a variety. So, yeah. Smiley faces in the chat. Oh, I hate when it converts my smiley face. There we go. Yeah. All right. So I think it might be good to take a pause there so that I don't keep rambling and go over time. And I think I've touched on all the points I want. So yeah, and I also sometimes get questions about, I'll actually do this here. Sometimes I get questions about, how do I actually make this DappStarter project my own? So if you were to just clone this, your project gets generated into the DappStarter folder on the Decentrology organization. But if you wanted to make this project your own, you could just git clone this, just remove the repo and just, make your own repository and upload it there. You can also fork the repo if you want. And yeah, so hopefully you guys are excited about Web3 development. Hopefully this takes away the pain of having to get started on Web3. We really just want you to have a good experience, and we hope to see you making some cool dApps. So thanks, everybody.